welcome to another episode of the India InsurTech Association, the IA podcast. Today we have with us Mr. Mahesh, who is the Director, India Sales and Products at Artivatic, which is one of the leading AI-enabled InsurTech platform in India. Welcome on this podcast, Mr. Mahesh.
Thank you very much, Nilanjan. Pleasure is all mine.
Excellent. Let's start by you introducing yourself and Artivatic.ai.
Thank you very much, Nilanjan. I'm S. Mahesh. Have been part of the insurance industry for over 20 years, predominantly a BFSI professional with close to 30 years of experience, and been with Artivatic for about 2 years, trying to bring in my domain expertise and tech understanding to shape the way technology can help and enable insurance companies to penetrate better, reach larger customer base and acquire customers profitably, do better risk assessment. So that's what I do. And my company, Artivatic, is, as you said, one of the insurtech players in the Indian market space, but having vision of not growing business only in India, but also growing it outside of India. And we are passionate about creating products, platforms, and APIs for the insurance business, which will help insurance companies to modernize from the legacy platforms, use latest new age technology, generative AI capabilities to make better customer decisions, better risk and underwriting decisions, and be able to build profile-based customer personas and design products, services, and the entire ecosystem geared towards enhancing the entire customer experience. So that is what we are here to create and build. And we believe that we have an excellent suite of products and capabilities, which is already being used by the insurance businesses in India and some outside India, which have already started taking benefit of connected data-driven intelligence, which helps companies to focus their attention on their core areas of business rather than trying to assimilate data and then try to arrive at decision making and help the companies make faster decisions on the entire life cycle of a customer that they try to manage. That's what we do.
All right. That's nice to know. Artivatic, what I know, uses generative AI in a big way. It's actually become a major area of focus also. So, how has the insurance industry's adoption of generative AI progressed really? And how is Artivatic using generative AI in its own technology platform or the solutions that they're building to cater to this new demand?
I think that's a very pertinent question at the outset, Nilanjan. I think the way I look at Artivatic looks at the opportunity is really that there is a lot of information that is available for insurance companies to profile customers, acquire customers, underwrite customers, or take decisions when it comes to selecting a risk or at the time of claims. There is a lot of data and information which is available, which can be used to make the process extremely efficient and frictionless for the customer. The question is that data and the potential of that data being unlocked when the is really there. That is the question, and that is the problem that we are trying to really understand in depth, because conventionally speaking, insurance has been push product. It is normally interpreted that the customer, once he buys the policy, then he goes into a slumber and you don't need to constantly engage with the customer. And once the customer has bought, then you go to the next customer. But how do you, the opportunity to increase the share of wallet with an existing customer or to go back to the customer and use his word of mouth to really expand your customer base has not been an approach that has been adopted, because the data is not available when it is really required. And the potential that is available in data is not always unlocked by insurance companies. And that is a problem that we were trying to solve. And what we do is that we look at data, whether it comes from structured sources or unstructured sources, or from the historical policy data of the companies, insurers, or external sources of information, which helps us to understand the customer's profile, customers' behavior, customers' need, and estimate a lot of predictive behaviors about the customer, which is extremely useful to understand what kind of a product that customer may require, what kind of a risk appetite that customer may have, or what kind of a risk that customer may bring on the books of the insurance company, and use that information to make an underwriting decision for the underwriter. Build the entire profile of the customer based on all of this data, interpreting that data. And that is what generative AI does. You get information in various forms. How do you use technology-based solution to interpret, extract that information, summarize that information, interpret that information in an intelligent way, and then use that information to arrive at an intelligent recommendation, which is maybe 70, 75, or 80% of the job done for a person who is selling, or a person who is underwriting, or a person who is trying to assess a claim. And then the person has only got to do the last mile decision-making process. That work, which is required to be done till the time a decision is made, is predominantly done by generative AI technology, and it gives a recommendation to the underwriter or the claim assessor or the agent for that matter. And then it is only for that person to accept that decision and take it forward and close the transaction. So it reduces the time it makes the journey extremely frictionless for the customer, and it leads to lower cost for the insurance company because a lot of administrative hassles are eliminated. And most importantly, a lot of subjective decision-making process that otherwise takes place is replaced by a very objective, data-driven, intelligent decision-making process. And it is extremely auditable. You can go back and see what was the data that was used to make these decisions. And the data is not only looking at the data which is required to take an underwriting decision, but it also looks at the experience, maybe in terms of claims, maybe in terms of persistency, to see what kind of experience this customer profile may offer in future based on the customers who have been acquired in the past, based on the experience of the customers who have acquired in the past. And all of this happens in a matter of seconds. No human being can ever be able to look at so much of data to take an underwriting decision or a claim decision in such a short period of time. And that is where AI-based capabilities, generative AI capabilities really come into force. And that's where I feel there is a huge opportunity for the insurance companies to really modernize and innovate their processes.
So that's good to know, Mr. Mahesh, and I'm sure Artivatic is kind of mapping that entire landscape of insurance, core insurance services, and using generative AI, developing all those sub processes on its platform, which kind of helps your prospective customers. I think one area which also is of significant importance is fraud, right? And fraud, especially in the age of AI, has become very difficult to track sometimes. And a lot of insurance companies are facing a real-time challenge to manage fraud. So, does Artivatic have any solutions for fraud management today?
Yes, Nilanjan. So when we talk about helping insurers to take better underwriting decisions and claim decision, I think fraud-based abuse management becomes a very integral part of the solutions that we offer. And let me take a couple of examples to articulate what kind of solutions are really implemented and available that Artivatic offers. Let us say underwriting as an example. We all understand about 80 to 90% of the proposals that are accepted by the insurers today are not medically underwritten. It is based on information that is declared by the customer on the proposal form, and maybe about 10 to 15 or 20%, depending on the nature of the product and the risk appetite of the company, may go for a thorough, detailed medical evaluation. Now, fraud can happen, surprisingly speaking, it can happen in both the buckets. It can happen in the policies that are being accepted just based on the declaration given by the customer, or even in the case where the customer is going for a medical evaluation. And it is important that any red flags that are seen are detected. Most of the time, such red flags are detected through a human intervention in the conventional process where there is a gut feel or the intuition of the underwriter which comes into play. But how can we rely on that all the time, and how can we expect that a human being will be able to catch every single red flag when it happens? So that is where technology really comes into play, and that is where we step in. So let me take a simple couple of examples. For example, we can record every company practically does something called a pre-issuance verification call process. So what we can bring in a solution where when the customer is doing a recording of call as part of the pre-issuance verification call, we can predict various kind of health vitals about that customer, various kinds of bodily metrics about that customer. Sorry. So we can predict various kind of health vitals about that customer when the customer is speaking. We can, for example, when the customer is speaking, we can identify if there is a lip sync that is happening, because there is a possibility that the customer may not actually be speaking, but somebody else may be prompting, or somebody else may be speaking on behalf of the customer. We can identify in case there is some kind of a spoof or some kind of a deep fake that is being used. And these are the real challenges that one is facing, and it cannot be identified. So this is just one of the examples where fraud can be identified. The second area is customers give a lot of documentation, like their income proofs, evidences, or some KYC documents which are provided for underwriting a policy. Now, how to identify document fraud? That is an important aspect where we provide solutions which helps to identify whether the documents that have been provided by the customer are authentic. Coming to the other side, when we talk about the medical policies, there are medical documents, reports that are received from hospitals, diagnostic centers. There is a lot of opportunity for incorrect information being passed on to the insurer, either at the time of underwriting or at the time of claims, to get some benefit. Now, how do you look at those documents? How do you do something as straightforward as, say, data mirroring? Is the same template being used by the hospital over and over again for multiple customers? So how do you detect that? So we offer solutions of that nature. We can identify what is the diagnosis that is mentioned on the document, identify whether the nature of procedure that is being applied for that diagnosis, is it the relevant procedure? And all of this using generative AI capability. We can just pick up the diagnosis which is written by the doctor. We can extract that information, identify what is the ICD code for it, identify what kind of a procedure should be given for the customer for such a diagnosis, and then match it with the procedure that was actually given. So we can go right from the beginning to the end of the transaction to see where the red flags can happen, and so on and so forth. So there is a series of interventions, checks and balances that we do both at the time of underwriting as well as at the time of in the claims management part, to see whether there are any kind of red flags. And all of this then comes in a very user-friendly manner to the underwriter or the claim assessor to say what are the red flags. We can look at bank statements to find out if there were any kind of transactions that were not being disclosed by the customer. Customer may say that I don't have any insurance policy, but we can look at the bank statement transactions and find out whether there were payments being made for any insurance policy or not. Aggregate that. I highlight that to the underwriter. We can look at the formats of, say, Aadhaar card. Let me take a simple example like an Aadhaar card. In case there is an Aadhaar card being provided, we can identify whether that number meets the logic of how an Aadhaar card number should actually be. In case there is any manipulation done on that number, we will be able to identify if there is a physical process. Similarly, there are many such services that are available with Artivatic, which can be integrated with the underwriting or the claim process of an insurer to detect such kind of anomalies and take corrective action.
Before we let you go, maybe last couple of seconds, we'd like to hear from you. What is your message to the Indian InsurTech community and IIA members in general?
For the IIA, I think it's a great platform. It is helping to bring together like-minded people who are all thinking about how they can make a difference to the industry at large together. And that cross-pollination of ideas that happens through this platform is, I think, one of the best opportunities that one could have yearned for. And I think IIA offers that platform. I am extremely thankful that I'm able to connect with people who are thinking about making an impact and disrupt the ecosystem.
It's been a pleasure, Mr. Mahesh, talking to you and knowing more about your company, Artivatic.ai. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Niranjan.